Hey everyone, in 2016 we got the sequel to The Conjuring 2, which introduced one of the creepiest characters I think I've seen in a horror movie in quite some time. Obviously she would get her own spin-off movie, and that is the topic of this video in this year's film 2018's The Nun. Now, The Nun isn't the only sequel that the Conjuring franchise has spun off of. Originally it started with Annabelle, which was okay, and then actually Annabelle Creation, which was a sequel to the spin-off, which was actually really good. I really liked Annabelle Creation. That one was very good and very much exceeded its predecessor. Now we have another character, seeing that Annabelle did pretty well for herself, enough to get a sequel, another Conjuring character getting their own movie with The Nun. Now, obviously, The Nun was really creepy. I think it got a lot of audiences excited. There were tons of cosplays, tons of things online, promotional art, stuff like that. Buzz that was created about this character that we didn't really get to see a whole lot of, but definitely made an impact in The Conjuring 2. And I think that the producers and sort of studios saw that opportunity and they wanted to keep that money machine rolling with The Nun. But I think this movie definitely very much follows suit with the first Annabelle, where it's a good idea, but it very much disappoints in a lot of ways. This was simply not a good horror film above anything else, and I think what really disappoints the most out of The Nun, I mean, it has very much a lot of those cliches that we see in horror films nowadays with the jump scares, various things happening that one character can see but others can't, a lot of step-by-step beats that we've seen in a lot of other franchises that after a while it gets to be annoying. But going back to that biggest disappointment that I feel like this movie has overall is that James Wan was part of the story, creative story that made this movie. Now obviously he created The Conjuring and Conjuring 2, which I love very much, but I feel like that he just really dropped the ball on this one. Like there was just, I didn't feel engaged whatsoever. I felt like I was watching something that I'd seen before, and it's only like an hour and a half, but it feels even less than that. They probably could have cut out some of it with just not even needing to be in the film, and I just didn't really feel engaged or wanting to know more, wanting to see more, even wanting to be scared. I never even felt scared during this movie, and that's definitely not something you want in a horror movie, especially in 2018 when people have seen it all. But going back to the story of The Nun, I feel like the biggest sin that, pardon the pun, the biggest sin that this film commits is that it does not connect itself very well to the rest of the Conjuring franchise, and that was, or Conjuring Universe, whatever they're calling it. And I think that was something that they really put a lot into their marketing, is how it was part of the Conjuring Universe. Yes, it does connect to it, but it's just not in enough of a way that I felt like I actually cared about or had that aha moment, very much like in Annabelle Creation, which even connected to Annabelle, which even connected to The Conjuring. So essentially the story that The Nun plays out and sort of gives us in a flashback scene is that this nun was a demon spirit sort of thing that this duke summoned, and then when he was summoning it, he was not able to complete the ritual, so the whole thing was glossed over. Then years later there was a bombing, bomb hits that same site and reopens the cracks or whatever, gateway, portal, whatever you want to call it, to allow Valak, which is the name of the nun, back into our world. But the way that they sort of explain it is that because she had come up like they built like the convent on top of this area, obviously. So when she comes about and she takes the form of a nun, essentially to blend in and still scare the crap out of everyone there and kill them for whatever demon spirit reasons that may be. But I feel like it doesn't make sense in the continuity of The Conjuring, because what's happening in The Nun takes place in 1952, I think they say, and then The Conjuring 2 happens in 1976, something like that. So it's about a 24-year difference. Now, if you think about it, why is Valak still a nun in a different country at a different time? Why is it? Because they say that Valak can take any form that it wants to. It's more or less a trickster, kind of like a Loki type of thing, where it can take any form that it really wants to in order to possess, kill, maim, whatever the case may be. But why is it still taking the same form 24 years later? Again, I don't want to get into the ending of this movie, how it sort of comes about, or like that big twist reveal type of thing that they like to try and do. But it just doesn't make sense. It makes sense that it is a nun in the content or context that it's at a convent or a church, things like that. But in 1976 in The Conjuring 2, it's in a UK city. I think it's in London, if I'm not wrong. Like, it just doesn't make sense why those two are connected. They try and connect it as to maybe how it got there. I think I have a very paper-thin argument as to why it would still have the form of a nun, despite being able to take any form it wants. But again, it's paper thin. I don't really want to get into it in this video. I don't want to ruin it for people who haven't seen the movie and do want to see the movie. But it's just so razor thin, this theory that I have as to why it would still be the nun. But it's really aggravating because James Wan is such a creative director and writer. I feel like he really had the ability even to connect even his own franchise, and I feel like they even failed at that. Overall, The Nun was just not a good movie, and it definitely was not a good horror movie. It had the concepts there, and it just didn't do and perform what we wanted, especially when it took a character that people wanted to see so much more of and gave them a movie about that idea. But even in the grand scheme of things, it didn't really give us that much more information, and it didn't really even show the nun that much. It showed nuns, but not necessarily the nun that we wanted to see. She was there just very late in the movie, which is definitely not good when your main character in film is about the character that people went to go see the movie to see. And for that reason, the overall grade that I have to give The Nun is a D. My only hopes that if they continue with the Nun sequel, which they most likely will, because this has been the highest opening box office of the Conjuring franchise or Conjuring Universe, that when they do make a sequel, which they most likely will, that they very much followed Annabelle Creation. The first one was meh to like, oh, okay, it connects, things like that. A little bit scary. But Annabelle Creation was really a really good horror movie that took the original Annabelle idea and put it into a cohesive horror movie. Like, that was actually a pretty good horror movie, especially for 2018. I really hope that they are able to refocus, create something great like that again, and share it with us, because if they can do that, I think that would be one of the best horror movies, I wouldn't say maybe ever, but of more recent years. But hopefully, if they do make one, it will be much better than this one. But you can go check out The Nun. It's in theaters now. But other than that, that's all my thoughts here on The Nun. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.